everybody, and welcome to the music production tutorials. This is the final video of the series that I've been looking at on using MIDI to create an original song. So the two videos from before are below down in the description there. Now, just to link in, what we've done so far at this point is we've created a chord sequence in lesson 1, and in that lesson we created a chord sequence, a melody, a bass line, and we added a drum loop. In the second session we changed the sounds of those chords and melodies to fit the style of lo-fi, and we also added 6 notes to the chords just to give it that extra kind of sound and flavour. Now what we're going to be doing today is we're going to add a counter melody to our piece of music. And then after we've done that, I'm going to start structuring, and we're going to look at 2 very important effects that I'd like to talk about that are worth utilising in your final piece of music. So I'm just going to quickly make sure that's right. So here's the piece of music from the second lesson as it stands. What is quite nice, I mentioned this in the previous video, is the fact that now all the notes are in the right place. In the previous video they weren't. You could hear them and they were correct, but due to it being free software, as I said. Now, I'm using Bandlab, as I've said in the previous videos. Everything I'm showing you is applicable to every single DAW. Obviously things are located in different places. Please leave a comment in the link and the comments down below if you wish for me to look at a different DAW software. I do have access to Logic and Ableton. I could use Soundtrap. The reason I'm using Bandlab is because it's free. It's the software I use as a teacher currently, and it just makes my life easier to help, obviously, the students who I'm currently teaching. Okay, so, right, what we're going to do then, as I've said, the first thing I want to do is create a counter melody. Now, to speed the process up, where the 3 dots are, I'm just going to click duplicate. Okay, and I'm just going to change the name of this to counter melody. Okay, fab. Right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this, and I am going to double click in here. Now what I would suggest you do when it comes to your counter melody is you've got 2 ways to make it different to the main melody. One is obviously to use different notes in a different order, but another is to hold notes down for longer. So my original melody was a lot of short notes after a certain amount of time. I'm just going to get rid of these Bandlab sounds a minute. So as you can see here, you know, there's gaps and it worked really nicely. What I want to do here is I'm just going to solo this melody. Okay, so again, double click in the space, bottom right, drag your file to the end of the 4 bars as I did. So I'll just quickly show you that and drag back like so, double click, and here we go. So my other melody was around C4 and C5. That's what I'm going to stick again. Now, one thing that's good, going back to our Roman numerals, is again, if I start on the major or the 5th Roman numeral of major, G major or F major, they're not bad starting points for me to create my next melody. Because what I don't want to do, if I can avoid it, is use the same notes in the same order. So let's just find out what the first note is. It was a C. So I don't want to start with a C. So I'm going to start with a G. Okay? And I'm also going to make this stretch a little bit longer. Okay, so I'm going to play them at the same time. Well, I'll play this one individually first. So we've got a G. I'm now going to go to an A, make it a bit shorter, and then here I'm going to go to an F. Right, so if I play that, if I put that with this melody, notice they work really quite nicely together. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is the same thing, just carry on. So I'm going to use around these notes. The great thing about melodies is a lot of people overcomplicate these. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, we're in C major, so as long as we use any white key in any order, we're absolutely fine to do what we're doing. However, I like to stick within a range. So, for example, I've started on G. So A and F are great places to go. We don't want to be jumping, as I mentioned, too much in the other melodies because it can be quite distracting. So I'm going to do an A here. and then I'm going to go to a B. Okay, so I'm just copying these notes. Just to make my life easier, I'm going to have a gap here as well and go back to G. So I'm just going to hear this on its own first. Okay, not too bad. With the other melody. Okay, not too bad. I'm not sure I like this B. Try and see. That's better. Okay, so same thing. Just going to try and finish this as quick as we can. So I'm going to do something a bit strange here. Instead of playing on the 1, let's go on the 2 for this melody to start. Okay, just because, why not? You know, I think sometimes we can overdo it. You know, silence is our friend as well. So again, on its own. Okay, and then we can add in the rest. So we're going to go here. And then we'll go to G to finish. Okay, on a nice 5th. So again, just to clarify, I'm going to actually just move these down an octave. So I'm going to bring these down to the G here. Now let's have a listen. That's better. A lot better. So it's a nice contrast to this. Okay, now this is higher up, it's on C5 with not much jumps. So this has gone down, it adds a nice pitch change. Now just to clarify from my second video, I'm still using electric piano because that goes well with the style that I'm creating. So the final thing I just want to, actually sorry, not the final thing. So first of all, how do we structure? Now the best way to structure something is, we know that this works as a loop. We know that works as a loop. Apologies, it sounds really nice. Okay, I'm just going to slow it down again. I'm going to slow it down to 70. As I say, lo-fi hip hop, it is slow. I just want to see. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about another thing to do is if I just quickly go onto my YouTube here and ignore all the roadblocks and stuff. I do have a child. And I go onto lo-fi hip hop here. Okay, this is the kind of thing I want it to sound like. So it's always good for reference to go to something that you want to see. Obviously, we've got an advert here because that's just inevitable. You know, the world we live in these days. Let's wait for it to do it. Right, okay, so I want it to have a similar vibe to this. Okay. I think mine's still a bit fast. Okay, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to knock this down, and this is why it's always good to get the reference. I'm going to go all the way down to 60. I'm going to go really extreme on this and see what happens. It's not too bad. I think it's a bit slow. Let's try 65. So this is again, you know, tempting. Don't forget BPM, beats per minute. Again, your MIDI will stay, as will your audio within Bandlab in time. That's better. Right, okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to start with the chords. And I'm going to let them go on for a while. Okay, so to loop, we'll go to the top right and drag it over. If you drag it from the bottom, you won't get anything, guys. So make sure it's the top right to make sure this is looped, okay? Now, just to mention that melody is in there for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it's not loaded in on the image, but it's definitely there. So I'm going to bring this in here. And again, we'll let these breathe a little bit together. There's no rush. So what I'm doing here is layering the sounds. So I'm adding sounds in together. Now I'm going to bring in the drums and the bass together because from personal experience, I just think that works a bit better. So again, we're going to do that and I'm going to let these go on their own. And then to finally just kind of finish this off, this counter melody, I'm going to bring in last. Okay. Now you can do as many counter melodies as you like. There is no rule on this, and a lot of pieces of music tend to have more than 2 melodies, you know, depending on what kind of texture you've got. So, as you can see, it's now filled in that gap. So if I play this, this is our thing. But before I get there, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loop this top bit here so I can hear all of them. Because the final thing I want to do is my effects. So I'm going to go to the effects chain at the bottom. I'm going to go on add effect. Now, the two effects that I think are super important to get a really good idea of what you're doing. The first one is graphic EQ. Now, just to explain an EQ, think of it like pitch on a keyboard. On the right side here is our higher pitches. On the left side is our lower. It's not actually pitch, it's what we know as frequencies. Just to give you an example, if you've got a pet dog, there's probably been a time where the dog has barked at something and you go, there's nothing there, what are you barking at? And there probably was something that the dog heard. So our ears have a frequency range of pitch that we can actually hear, okay? And animals have a bigger range. So when I say you didn't hear it, that's where it refers to. Now, what I can do with graphic EQ is raise the frequencies I want to stand out on different sounds. So what I'm going to do with this, I'll be honest, the piano is quite good. I don't want too many lows, so I'm going to raise the lower frequency, and I'm going to bring down a little bit the highs because for me, I want this piano to kind of sit in the middle. So we don't want to go crazy with this. You know, if we were making horror music, we might do, which can be a video in the future. It's only subtle, so here it is. Here, so this is the piano. Right, let's add the graphic EQ now. It's not really changing much. But we're trying to bring out that mid a little bit more, because in the final mix, what happens is you want to balance out your EQ so you get more of the sound coming through the headphones a lot clearer. So the other effect I want to look at is reverb. So reverb, we'll go on Space Maker. Now reverb is all about the space in which the sound is being heard. Obviously these are MIDI tracks, so the instruments aren't real, we're not actually in a real space, but reverb can add it artificially. Now, for me, I would say reverb is the most important thing you're going to add, because no matter what music you listen to, there has to be some level of reverb, even if it's small. Okay, again, if you go really extreme, it can sound really terrible. So lo-fi is based on kind of jazz and funk and hip hop. I want it to be a small ambience, almost like I'm in a little nice bar or club kind of vibe, you know, having a good time. So I don't want a church or anything like that. So I'm just going on a small ambience. If I raise the mix though really high, you'll notice that there's a lot of reverb coming in. It's actually not that bad. If I go on church, oh, you can hear it subtly there. So I'm just going to go on small ambience. I'm going to make this go down to about 10. Okay? Just to show you in a better example, if I go on the drums next, and I'm going to solo these. Okay, if I go on graphic EQ, and I raise all the highs, you're going to hear mainly the cymbals. You're not going to get a lot of the kick drum, the lower bass drum. Okay, so this is the drums with the EQ, without the EQ. And then this is with. It's not very pleasant, okay? So again, you're balancing it out. So the great thing about drums is you want to balance it out, because if you're struggling to hear the kick drum, raise it. You know, in the frequencies, raise it, make it so that it sticks out more, okay? But again, you don't want to go crazy with EQ, because the problem with raising the frequencies too high is you'll start to clip the volume. In other words, it will start to distort. So again. Oh yeah, so we can hear that. But as you can see up here, it's clipping. So, just going to bring these down a little bit. Okay, they're still clipping, but I could add an effect later, which I'm not going to show you today, that takes that away. So if I go and add effect again, reverb, just to show you the craziness of reverb. Again, so my drums, if I go to 100%, put them in a church, I'm just going to get rid of the EQ a minute. Okay, we don't want that, so I'm going to go to small ambience, just to show you what I mean. So if I take it again, realistically, when you do reverb, guys, you're looking at 10% in most music, a bit, maybe 10 to 40 as a maximum is a general rule. Obviously, it varies, and again, it's your ears. It's up to you what you think works well, and people experiment with this kind of thing all the time. So here's with the graphic EQ and a little bit of reverb. You can hear that little echo. Okay, nice. Right, bass, I'm going to want to bring... That's weird. Why has it got both of them in it? That's bizarre. It shouldn't be doing that. That's what I mean about free software. Oh, I must have added in both. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to raise the bass here. Just bring up those bass notes. The middle, I'm just going to bring back down to 0 decibels. Down there. And then just raise the high slightly for when it pops. So again. Again, you can hear the difference. I'm not a fan of that. Let's bring it down. So again, this is something you play about with, guys, to get the overall idea of what you want. So I'm just bringing this down a little bit because we don't need it that high. So without, with. So if you ever hear something through a sub speaker and stuff, raising those lower EQs is going to help bring out that low end of your bass. Right, so my melodies, I'm just going to very quickly do this and not go over it too much. So graphic EQ, I want my melodies to raise a little bit on the highest side, especially this one. And then I'm going to add just a little reverb. Again, small ambience. Okay, and that'll do there. And then main melody, same thing. I'm just going to raise it slightly. And then that will hopefully just bring in. Again, it's very quick, guys. Obviously, you need to take a bit more time with this than I currently am. But it just gives you an idea, okay? And also, if you ever write up about this as a student, you can talk about why you've done this. Now, before I play the final product, the other thing I wanted to quickly mention was, he says he's forgot if he was going to. Was that everything? I think that could have been everything. So we've used all the effects, we've structured our idea out. Okay, so if I was to structure this further, what I'd probably do is let these play for a little bit together, then go back to the piano on its own, and then bring them all back in together. A standard kind of hip-hop, lo-fi hip-hop structure, which is effectively like an ABA type situation. So, you know, A being piano on its own and then bringing them in. But also layering, obviously, coming in to that as well. Because it's not strictly ABA, but what I mean is in my head, I'm thinking A is the piano on its own, B is when everything finally gets there together, and then A is piano on its own. But really, it's a layered structure. So that's it for today's video, guys. Hopefully that has helped those of you that need some ideas on how to do this. I will be releasing further content on how to create a drum beat using a drum machine. I'll also be looking at creating in different styles of music using this free software and this Bandlab software, just so that everyone can have a go and see how you get on using it. Hopefully that's helped you out with MIDI. If you've got any questions at all, please obviously drop them in the comment section below. The links to the previous lessons will also be in there. So just as we finish up today, guys, this is how it sounds as a finished product. But what I'm going to do, just to speed the process, is start it from bar 5. So here we go. just to clarify what I did during that performance, just as we wrap up this video again. Lowered the volume so that these balance out. This is another important part of music tech, is making sure that all the instruments can be heard balanced as possible. And then finally, please don't ever lower this up the top. You want it to be at 0 decibels. This is your main mix out, but you can lower your individual instruments or raise them. Okay, just to mention with that, L&R is talking about panning. So when you put your headphones on, you create almost like a helmet around your head from an audio perspective. So any that sit here in the middle kind of will be heard in this area, whereas the main melody and the counter melody are going to be coming straight from the left and the right. Now, just to explain why I do that is because if everything goes down the middle, you run the risk of losing things. But bass, always you want down the middle. And the piano chords, I would also recommend going down the middle. I'll put more information about a panning video in the future. Also linking to mixing. So thanks again, guys. Please like and subscribe for more. Any questions down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much.